A poor black man sat outside a small grocery store, savoring the simple meal he had packed, sought after another long, weary shift. Suddenly, he noticed a little girl clutching a plastic bag of bottles, moving quietly from trash can to trash can. Her eyes kept drifting back to his food with a quiet, aching longing. Without hesitation, he stood and offered her half of his only sandwich. When he asked gently why she was there alone, she hesitated, then whispered that her grandmother had not woken up, so she was doing the work her grandmother usually did. Something in her words sent a chill through him. He followed her home and froze the moment he stepped inside. From that instant forward, he was forced to make a choice that would change his life forever. Before we continue, tell us what time it is and where you are watching from. And don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's story goes even deeper. The afternoon light drifted softly through the curtains of the modest living room, casting gentle shadows across 3 generations gathered together for the first time in many decades. Elias Harper sat between his elderly parents, their weathered hands clasped tightly in his. Tears traced paths down faces lined with years of searching, wondering, and hoping. "We never stopped looking," his mother whispered, her voice trembling. Behind them stood Clara Bennett, a grown woman now, her hand resting gently on Elias's shoulder. She watched through her own tears, remembering the long journey that had brought them here. A journey that had begun with nothing more than a sandwich and a man who had every reason to walk away but chose to stay. "Tell them how we found each other," Elias said softly, looking up at her. Clara smiled and squeezed his shoulder. "It started with a sandwich," she said, "and a man who had every reason to walk away but didn't." Elias Harper had learned early that hunger came in many forms. There was the sharp, physical kind, the hollow ache that made a hand tremble. But there was another hunger, deeper and quieter, the hunger to belong, to know where you came from, to have someone call you family. For years, he had told himself he had made peace with never satisfying that second hunger. He had grown up in the foster system, passed from home to home like a book no one ever kept long enough to finish. Several different families over the years. When he came of age, the social workers told him what little they knew. He had been found wandering near the Greyhound bus station in Memphis as a small child, crying for someone whose name the police could never understand. No missing person report had ever matched. No frantic parents had ever come forward. They gave him the name Elias, Salvation of the Lord, and Harper, a solid surname chosen as a placeholder for a child who seemed to belong nowhere. Years later, he worked as a maintenance man at the Riverside Apartments. The work was steady, the pay modest. He lived alone in a small one-bedroom on the 4th floor. At night, he heated a frozen dinner and fell asleep to the television's murmur. It was a small life, a quiet life, a safe life, because no one could abandon you if you never let them close. That afternoon began like any other. By midday, his back ached and his hands were gritty with dust. He sat on the bench outside the Dollar General, eating his usual sandwich, bologna and yellow mustard on white bread, when he saw her. A little girl moved methodically through the parking lot, checking every trash can, collecting bottles and cans with the quiet focus of someone who had done this many times before. Her clothes were faded and worn, her blonde hair tangled in a ponytail, her sneakers held together with duct tape. She carried a plastic bag already half full. What struck Elias was not the poverty. He knew that feeling too well. It was the practiced way she worked, the steady determination of a child for whom this was not play, but survival. She reminded him of himself at that age, trying so hard to earn her place in the world. She approached the trash can near his bench. Her eyes lingered on the second half of his sandwich. She saw him watching and quickly looked away, but not before he caught the flash of hunger. "You hungry?" he asked softly. She startled and stepped back. "No, sir." The answer came too fast, too practiced. Elias knew that tone. "I packed too much," he said, though they both knew it was a gentle lie. "Can't finish it all. Hate to see it go to waste." She hesitated, pride and hunger battling in her small face. Finally, she reached out with both hands and took the sandwich. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome. I'm Elias. What's your name?" "Clara." "That's a pretty name. You live around here, Clara?" She nodded, chewing. "Your folks know you're out collecting cans?" The question made her freeze. "I live with my grandma. She's sleeping. She sleeps a lot in the daytime. This morning I tried to wake her for breakfast, but she just made a sound and rolled over." A cold thread of worry moved down Elias's spine. An adult who would not wake for a child. That was not right. "How long has she been taking medicine?" he asked carefully. "I don't know. A while, I guess." Clara's eyes slid away, and Elias recognized the look of a child protecting an adult, covering for someone who could no longer protect her. He had worn that same look too many times himself. Clara finished the sandwich quickly and wiped her hands on her jeans. "I got to go back. Grandma will want her lunch soon." A child managing a household, collecting recyclables to buy food. Elias made a decision he would later mark as the moment everything changed. "Would you mind if I walked you home? Just to check on your grandma. Make sure she's all right?" Clara's eyes widened, first with wariness, then with something that looked like desperate relief. "Would you? I've been feeling real scared, but I didn't know who to tell." "You're not being silly. If something feels wrong, it probably is. All right, let's go." They walked several blocks in the midday heat. The neighborhood grew shabbier, peeling paint, yards thick with weeds, fences sagging. This was the part of town people drove through with their doors locked. Clara stopped in front of a small, faded yellow house. Newspapers and plastic bags lay scattered along the walkway. The mailbox overflowed. "This is it," she said quietly, shame in her voice. Inside, the air smelled stale and faintly of illness. "Grandma," Clara called. "Grandma, I'm home." No answer. The living room showed signs of care from better days, but neglect had crept in. Dishes piled in the sink, dust on every surface. "She's in the bedroom," Clara said. They stepped into the small room, and Elias knew at once. An elderly woman lay in bed, covers pulled to her chin despite the heat. She was too thin, the way people become near the end. Her gray hair was tangled and unwashed. Her face was waxy and still. "Grandma?" Clara shook her shoulder. "Grandma, wake up." No response, not even the rise and fall of breath. "Grandma, please, you've been sleeping too long. You got to wake up now." Clara's voice rose, edged with panic. Elias moved closer. In the light from the window, he saw the absolute stillness, the waxy pallor, the faint smell of something that did not belong. He had seen death before. He knew its face. This woman wore it. "Clara," he said gently, kneeling so their eyes met. "Sweetheart, come with me for a minute." "But Grandma needs to wake up." "Clara, your grandma, she's not sleeping. She's not going to wake up." "Yes, she is. She's just real tired." Clara shook her harder. "Grandma, please, please wake up, sweetheart." "She's gone, Clara. She died sometime last night or early this morning." "No." The word was small, broken. "No, she can't be. She's all I got. I'm so sorry." "Make her wake up." Clara grabbed her grandmother's arm. "Please, I'll be good. I promise. Just please make her wake up." She collapsed against the bed, sobbing, her small body shaking with the force of it. Elias felt his own eyes burn. He did not pull her away. He simply placed his hand on her back and stayed with her, offering the only comfort he had, his steady presence. As he knelt beside this grieving child he had known less than an hour, something shifted inside his chest, A wall he had spent years building began to crack. Looking at Clara's complete desolation, Elias knew 3 things with absolute certainty. This little girl was about to enter the same system that had broken him. He could not let that happen without a fight, and his life had just changed forever. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm here and I'm not leaving. You hear me, Clara? I'm not leaving." It was a promise he had no right to make, but it was all he had to give. The next hours blurred. Elias called 911 from the kitchen phone. Soon the house filled with strangers, paramedics, officers, and finally a social worker. Ms. Lorraine Fields arrived nearly an hour later. A woman in her middle years with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the weary look of someone who had seen too much sorrow. She found them on the front steps, Clara's hand still twisted in Elias's shirt. "Hi there," she said, crouching down. "My name is Lorraine. I work for Child Protective Services. You must be Clara." Clara nodded, but did not speak. "I need to ask you some questions so we can figure out where you're going to stay tonight. Do you have any other family? An aunt or uncle?" "No, ma'am." Ms. Fields made notes. "What about friends of the family?" "There was Mrs. Morales next door, but she moved away. And Mr. Parker at the church, but he died last year." Ms. Fields's face stayed calm, but sadness flickered in her eyes. She turned to Elias. "And you are?" "Elias Harper." "What's your relationship to Clara, Mr. Harper?" "I just met her today, but I'd like to help if I can." Ms. Fields's eyebrows rose. She glanced between them, noting the differences in their skin. "You just met her today?" "Yes, ma'am. I saw her collecting cans. She looked hungry, so I gave her half my sandwich." We talked, and something about how she described her grandmother worried me, so I walked her home. "I see." Ms. Fields gestured for him to step aside. When they were out of Clara's hearing, she lowered her voice. "Clara will need to come with me to a temporary placement facility while we look for relatives." "What kind of facility?" "We have a group home for children in crisis. It's clean. It's safe." "How many other kids?" Ms. Fields hesitated. "More than it was built to hold." Elias knew that kind of place. He had lived in them. He knew what they did to children. "I'd like to take care of her," he said. The words came before he had fully thought them through. Ms. Fields stared. "I'm sorry, what?" "Temporarily. Just until you find relatives or something more permanent. I don't want her going to a group home if there's another way." "Mr. Harper, do you understand what you're asking? Foster care is complicated. Background checks, home studies, training, and you have no legal relationship to her, no prior connection." "I know, but I also know what it's like to be a kid with nobody. I grew up in the system, several homes over the years. I know exactly what's waiting for her there, and I won't let that happen if there's any way to stop it." Something in his voice reached her. She studied him for a long moment. "You seem like a decent man," she said at last. "But I have to be honest, this is going to be complicated. You're a single man with no prior relationship to the child, and she trailed off. And she's white," Elias finished quietly. "And I'm not." Ms. Fields winced. "It's going to raise questions from the state, the court, the neighbors. People will wonder about your motives. You need to understand that." "I understand." "Do you?" "There will be invasive questions, surprise visits, having to prove yourself in ways other foster parents never do. One mistake, and people will assume the worst. Are you prepared for that?" Elias looked back at Clara, small, lost, terrified. "Yes," he said. "I'm prepared." Ms. Fields sighed and pulled out her phone. "The facility is way over capacity." She made calls, took notes. Finally, she returned. "Your background check is clean. Mr. Kim gave you a strong reference. Your landlord confirmed you've lived at Riverside for several years and always paid on time." She paused. "I'm approving a temporary emergency placement. A couple of weeks, Mr. Harper. That gives us time for a proper home study and to figure out what's best for Clara." Relief washed through him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You'll need emergency foster training. A few days. I'll visit regularly. You'll need to take her to a doctor soon. Enroll her in school. Start trauma counseling. And Mr. Harper, people are going to talk. They're going to question this. You need to be ready. And you need to protect Clara from it. Can you do that? Elias looked at Clara watching through the screen door, hope flickering in her eyes. Yes, he said. I can do that. By evening, they sat in his small apartment. They had gathered what little Clara owned, a worn stuffed rabbit, a few changes of clothes, a toothbrush, school papers with gold stars. Everything fit in one duffel bag. Elias gave her the bedroom. She sat on the edge of the bed in one of his t-shirts, clutching the rabbit. Are you really going to let me stay? She asked. For now, yes, as long as they let me. What if they find someone else? Then I'll make sure it's someone good. But I want to stay with you. Clara, you just met me. You don't really know me. I know you gave me your sandwich when you didn't have to, and you came to check on Grandma when you could have walked away. And you stayed. Her voice wavered. You didn't leave. I'll stay as long as they let me, he promised. Deal? Deal. They shook hands solemnly. Later that night, Elias lay on the couch listening to her muffled sobs. Around midnight, small footsteps came. Clara appeared in the doorway, face blotchy from tears. I can't sleep. It's too quiet. And I keep thinking about Grandma. Come here. She climbed onto the couch and curled into a small ball. He pulled the blanket over them both. Want to talk about it? He asked. I don't understand where she went. What if there's nothing? What if she's just gone? Elias had no easy answers. I think the people we love stay with us even after they're gone. In our memories. In the things they taught us. Your grandma is still here in you. In your smile. In the way you talk. In everything she taught you about being strong. Will I ever stop being sad? I don't know. The sadness might always be there a little, but it gets easier to carry. Elias? Yeah? I'm scared. Of what? Of everything. Of being alone. Of nobody wanting me. He pulled her closer. For now, you're not alone. You're right here with me. She fell asleep quickly. Elias stayed awake long after, staring at the ceiling, wondering what he had stepped into. But when Clara murmured in her sleep and pressed closer, something shifted inside him. Something that had been locked away for years. He had spent his life believing no one needed him, but this little girl needed him. And maybe, just maybe, he needed her too. The first weeks were harder than he had imagined. Clara woke screaming from nightmares almost every night, calling for her grandmother. Elias stumbled from the couch, never sure whether to turn on the light or hold her or give her space. He often got it wrong, but he kept showing up. She refused most foods, not from pickiness, but from a need for control. She had had so little control over anything. Food was one thing she could decide. Elias cooked simple meals. She picked at them and left most uneaten. On the fourth night, desperate, he made boxed macaroni and cheese, the bright orange kind. She ate the whole bowl. My grandma used to make this, she said quietly. On good days, she'd add extra butter. She said it was our special recipe. Your grandma sounds like she was smart and resourceful. She was, before she got sick. Clara's eyes filled. I know people probably think she was a bad grandma because of how things were at the end. But she wasn't bad. She was just sick. And she tried so hard. I don't think she was bad. I think she did the best she could with what she had. And she raised a pretty amazing kid. From then on, Elias kept boxes of macaroni and cheese in the cupboard. It became their comfort meal on hard days. Foster training was overwhelming. A few days of information about trauma and rules and requirements. Elias felt lost. Most of the other attendees were couples, mostly white, and seemed to have more preparation and ease. During a break, a well-dressed woman approached. Is this your first placement? Yes, ma'am. How wonderful. Is it a family member? No, ma'am, just a child who needed help. The woman's smile tightened. And your wife is? I'm not married. Oh, single foster parent. She paused. The child is… she's white, Elias said evenly. The woman flushed. I wasn't. I was just curious. Single male foster parents are rare, and cross-racial placements can be complicated. Studies show children do best with families who share their cultural background. Studies also show, Elias replied quietly, that children do best when they have one consistent adult who shows up every single day. When they're not shuffled between group homes like packages no one wants. The woman left quickly. During lunch, the instructor, a black woman named Mrs. Hayes, pulled him aside. I heard part of that. Don't let people like that get to you. She's not wrong about the research, though. Research is about averages, not individual children. I've seen culturally matched placements that were cold and neglectful. And I've seen cross-racial homes that gave kids the best love they ever knew. What matters is matching hearts. She handed him a card. My personal number. You're going to have hard days. Call anytime. School brought new struggles. Clara had missed time at Parkside Elementary. Her teacher, Mrs. Ellison, asked Elias to come in. She's struggling, Mrs. Ellison said gently. Behind in reading, trouble concentrating. She spends recess alone. What can I do? Be patient. Be consistent. Work with her at home on reading if you can. That evening, they sat at the kitchen table with homework spread between them. It took nearly an hour to get through 3 pages. Clara stumbled over words, lost her place, had to reread everything. Finally, she threw the book down. I'm stupid, I can't do it. Hey, Elias picked it up. You're not stupid. Not even a little. Yes, I am. The other kids read way better. The other kids didn't just lose their grandma. You're carrying a lot. In time, you'll read just fine. But you have to practice, even when it's hard. But it's too hard. You can do it. I know you can because you're one of the strongest, bravest people I've ever met. You got up every day and took care of your grandma when she was sick. That takes real strength. That same strength is going to help you learn to read. Will you help me? Every single day if that's what it takes. And he did. Every evening they practiced. Some days she made progress. Other days she cried and threw the book. But slowly her reading improved. After some weeks, she came home with a spelling test. All correct. A gold star in the corner. Look, I got everyone right. Elias felt his throat tighten. I'm so proud of you, Clara girl. Can we hang it on the fridge? Absolutely. But the hardest part was the looks. Every afternoon, Elias picked her up from school. He arrived early and walked to the entrance. He felt the stares, the conversations that stopped when he approached. Some mothers held their children's hands tighter as he passed. He knew what they were thinking. A black man picking up a white girl. The math didn't add up. One afternoon, a woman in expensive clothes approached. Excuse me, are you Clara Bennett's father? The pause before father made his jaw tighten. I'm her guardian. Oh, I see. I'm Madison's mother. I like to know who's around the children. For safety, of course. So you're fostering her. That must be quite an adjustment for her, living with someone so different from her usual family situation. You mean someone who's black? Elias asked quietly. The woman flushed. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I'm just concerned whether she's in an appropriate environment. What she needs, Elias said firmly but gently, is stability and kindness, and people who see her as a hurting child, not a problem to gossip about. If you're truly concerned about her well-being, maybe make sure your daughter is kind to her at school. That would actually help. Before she could answer, Clara came running up. Uncle E! She grabbed his hand, bouncing. Uncle E! Guess what? I got picked to be line leader tomorrow. Uncle E! The nickname had started early. That's wonderful, Clara girl. Come on. Can we stop at the library? Elias let her pull him toward the car, nodding politely to the woman. Let them talk. Let them wonder. He and Clara knew the truth. That was enough. But that night, lying awake on the couch in the small hours, Elias felt the full weight, the isolation, the constant scrutiny, the knowledge that he had to be perfect in ways others never did. He was still awake when Clara screamed. He found her sitting up in bed, sobbing, tangled in the sheets. She was there, but then she wasn't. Grandma was there, and then she turned into smoke. Elias sat on the edge of the bed. It was just a dream, sweetheart. It felt real. I know, but you're safe. You're here with me. Jimisto, I want Grandma. The words came out as a wail. Why did she have to die? She didn't want to leave you. Sometimes people die when it's not fair. But she loved you more than anything. Nobody stays. The words hit hard, because Clara was right. In her short life, everyone had left. I'm staying, Elias said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. I promise. Clara launched herself into his arms, crying into his shoulder. Elias held her, one hand on her back. In that moment, he made a decision that went beyond temporary care. He was going to fight to keep her, not for a short time, for always. He didn't know if it was possible, but he would find a way. Not everyone was suspicious. For every cold stare, there were people who offered help without question. The first was his neighbor, Mrs. Beatrice Morales, a widow in her later years. The day after Clara moved in, Mrs. Morales knocked with a covered dish. I heard you've taken in a little one, made my chicken casserole. Elias was surprised. In all the years he had lived there, they had only exchanged polite greetings. Thank you. That's very kind. It's nothing. Raising a child costs money. She peered around him. Is she here? I'd love to meet her. Mrs. Morales became a steady presence. She brought food, taught Elias how to braid Clara's hair, and quietly vouched for him whenever Ms. Fields visited. He's a good man, she would tell the social worker. Takes that child to school every morning. Never late. You can set your watch by him. The second unexpected help came from church. Someone at work mentioned the food pantry at New Hope Community Church. Elias had mixed feelings about religion, but Clara needed shoes, and pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. Pastor Samuel Hayes greeted him warmly. I'm Pastor Hayes, and you are? Elias Harper. I heard you have a food pantry. We do. Let me show you what we've got. As they sorted through bins, Elias found himself talking about Clara and his fear that he wasn't equipped for this. Pastor Hayes listened without interrupting. Sounds like you're doing exactly what that little girl needs. Showing up, trying your best, loving her even when it's hard. That's what parenting is. Not being perfect, just being present. I'm not really a church person, Pastor Hayes smiled. Neither was the Good Samaritan, as far as we know, but he still stopped to help. He handed Elias a flyer. We have a support group for foster parents on Thursday evenings. You might find it helpful. Elias almost didn't go, but one exhausted evening, he asked Mrs. Morales to watch Clara. The group met in the church basement. 6 other people, an older couple who had fostered many children, a young woman fostering her nephew, a same-sex couple, a single woman who had adopted several siblings, and Sharon, a white woman who had adopted children of different races. When Elias shared his story, Sharon nodded. The looks never completely go away. People see my black son or my Asian daughters with me and make assumptions. But you know what? My kids are loved. They're safe. That's what matters. How do you handle the constant judgment? I remember I'm not doing this for strangers' approval. I'm doing it for my kids. When they look at me, they don't see skin color first. They see Mom. Elias started attending every week. These people understood in ways others could not. When his water heater broke, he mentioned it at the group. The next day, Pastor Hayes arrived with several men from the congregation and a used water heater. Found it in my nephew's garage. still has life in it. They installed it for free. Pay it forward, Pastor Hayes said. That's how this works. At work, Mr. Kim was equally supportive. When Elias needed schedule changes for school pickups, Mr. Kim rearranged shifts without complaint. When Clara needed money for a field trip, Mr. Kim gave him an advance. Family comes first, Mr. Kim said. You're being a good father to that little girl. I'm not her father. Mr. Kim gave him a knowing look. Being a father isn't about biology. It's about showing up every day. That makes you her father, whether you realize it yet or not. After several months, everything changed. Elias came home to find Ms. Field's car outside. His stomach dropped. Unscheduled visits were never good. We need to talk, she said. They sat in her car. We've located a relative, she said without preamble. Clara's grandmother had a brother in another state, Gregory Lang. We finally tracked him down recently. The world tilted. He and his wife Patricia have expressed interest in taking Clara. They want her. Their family. Blood relatives. Under state law, biological family has priority. Do they know her? Have they ever met her? No. But have they called to check on her in the month since her grandmother died? Mr. Harper, I understand this is difficult. Do you? His voice rose. Clara wakes up screaming almost every night, and I'm the one who sits with her. She learned to ride a bike not long ago, and I was the one running beside her. I'm the one who bandaged her knees and cheered when she finally did it. And I'm supposed to just hand her over to strangers? I know you've bonded. She's my daughter. Maybe not by blood, maybe not legally yet, but in every way that matters. She's my daughter. Ms. Field's expression softened. You'd need to petition for permanent guardianship. It would mean going to court. The Langs could contest it. And I have to be honest, it's an uphill battle. The court favors biological family. And you're... She trailed off. I'm a single black man trying to keep a white child. I know the court will consider whether a transracial placement is in Clara's best interest. They'll look at cultural identity and community connection. Those are real concerns. Clara knows who she is, and she knows family isn't just about matching skin color. Ms. Fields pulled out a card. This is a lawyer who does pro bono work for cases like this, Attorney Isabel Cruz. Call her today. If you're serious about fighting for Clara, you'll need representation. That night, Elias told Clara about the Langs. Are they going to make me leave? Her voice was small, but steady. I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. The law says family should be together when possible. You're my family. I know. But they're family too. In a different way. If they cared about Grandma and Mom, where were they when we didn't have food? When the electric company sent the red letters? It's a fair question. I don't know, Clara girl. Sometimes families lose touch. Sometimes people don't know how bad things are until it's too late. I don't want to go. I want to stay here with you. Elias pulled her close. I'm going to fight for that as hard as I can. But you need to understand there might not be anything I can do. The courts might say you have to go because they're blood relatives. That's stupid. Maybe, but it's how things sometimes work. Are you giving up on me? The question knocked the breath from him. He pulled back to look at her directly. No, never. I will never give up on you. I'm going to do everything I can to keep us together, but I need to be honest about what might happen. Clara looked at him with those old eyes. When Grandma was dying, she told me something. She said sometimes the people who are supposed to love you let you down, but sometimes strangers turn out to be angels in disguise. She said I should trust the angels, not just the blood. Elias's throat closed. Your grandma was a wise woman. You're my angel, Uncle E. You're the one who stayed. That's what makes you my family. I love you, Clara girl. Whatever happens, I want you to know I love you too. The Langs arrived soon after. The meeting was at Ms. Fields' office. Clara sat in a corner drawing fiercely on a sketch pad. Gregory Lang was a man in his middle years with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses. Patricia was younger, blonde, with a nervous smile. They seemed like decent people, Elias had to admit. Regular folks a judge would see as stable. "We're so sorry about Evelyn," Patricia said softly. "I wish we'd known how bad things had gotten." "Did you know she was sick?" Elias asked. Gregory and Patricia exchanged a glance. "We'd lost touch," Gregory admitted. "My sister and I had a falling out some years ago. Family stuff. A fight over our parents' estate. We stopped talking. I kept meaning to reach out, but time kept passing." "She never reached out to you either." "When her daughter died. When she was raising Clara alone and struggling. No. And I didn't reach out to her. I told myself she'd call if she needed help. But that was pride and stubbornness. I should have called." The honesty was disarming. These weren't villains, just people who had made mistakes and were now trying to make amends. But they were years too late for Evelyn. Whether they deserved a second chance with Clara was another question. "Can we meet her?" Patricia asked. "Clara, honey, would you come here, please?" Ms. Fields called. Clara walked over and stood beside Elias's chair, one hand on his shoulder, claiming him. "Hi, Clara," Patricia said brightly. "I'm your Aunt Patricia. This is your Uncle Gregory. We've been looking forward to meeting you." "I know who you are," Clara said quietly. "We'd love to get to know you better. What do you like to do for fun?" "I like reading and drawing and going to the library on Saturdays with Uncle E." "Uncle E?" Gregory looked confused. "Elias," Clara clarified, her hand tightening on his shoulder. "Well, we have wonderful libraries where we live too. And a big house with a yard. You could have your own room however you want. We have 2 sons. Your cousins. They've always wanted a little sister. I have my own room here. Yes, but there you'd have more space, a bigger room. Amad Mamantum. A yard with a swing set and trampoline. The schools are really good. I have friends here." Patricia's smile grew strained. "Wouldn't it be nice to be with your real family? People who share your history? Uncle E is my real family. Mr. Harper has been very kind," Patricia said patiently. "But sweetheart, we're your actual family, your blood, the people you belong with." "I belong with Uncle E," Clara said, steel in her voice. "He's my family because he stayed, because he learned to do my hair even though he didn't know how, because he helps me with homework every night, because when I wake up scared, he's there. That's what makes family, not blood." Staying. The room went silent. "Clara, sweetheart," Patricia tried again. "We're offering something more permanent, more stable. A real family with 2 parents." "I said no." Clara's voice rose. "I don't want to go. I don't want a swing set. I want to stay with Uncle E. Why doesn't anybody listen to me?" "Clara," Ms. Fields said gently, "no one's saying you don't get a choice. I don't care about legal. I don't care about blood. I care about who shows up. And Uncle E shows up every single day. Where were you when Grandma was dying? Where were you when I didn't have food? Where were you when I was scared and alone?" She turned and ran from the room, the door slamming behind her. Over the next days, the Langs visited several more times, zoo trips, restaurant lunches, an afternoon at a children's museum. Each time, they returned Clara with strained smiles. But Clara told Elias the truth. "They're nice. They try real hard, but they don't know me. They don't know I like my sandwiches cut diagonal. They don't know I'm scared of loud noises. They don't know that when I'm sad I need to draw, not talk." She looked up at him. "They could learn those things, but why should I have to teach them when you already know?" Attorney Isabel Cruz agreed to take the case. "I'll be honest," she said. "This is going to be tough. The Langs check a lot of boxes courts like married, financially stable, own their home, biological relatives, seem like decent people. But family court is about the child's best interest. We can argue that disrupting Clara's life now would cause real harm. We can show the bond you've built, your fitness as a guardian, the stability you've provided. We can have Clara testify. If we convince the judge that staying with you is best for her, we have a chance. What kind of chance? Difficult. But you have advantages. Several months of successful placement. Clear evidence of attachment. Clara's stated preference. If we build the case well, I think we can win. What do we need to do? Gather evidence, character letters, school reports, medical records, documentation of your support system, letters from neighbors, teachers, anyone who can speak for the placement. She paused. And we'll need Clara to testify in chambers. The judge will want to minimize trauma, but she'll need to explain why she wants to stay with you. She's just a child, I know. But family court judges speak with children all the time. They give real weight to a child's expressed wishes. Isabel leaned forward. The hearing will be in several months. That gives us time to prepare. But Elias, you need to ready yourself for the possibility we might lose. I know. Do you? Because I've seen cases like this break people. You need to stay strong for Clara. No matter what happens, can you do that? Elias thought about losing her. Yes, he said. I can do that. The next several months blurred with preparation. Isabel gathered evidence carefully. Pastor Hayes wrote about Elias's character. Mrs. Morales wrote about the home. Mrs. Ellison provided school records showing Clara's improvement. Mr. Kim wrote about his reliability. The home study was invasive. A social worker spending hours in the apartment, asking questions, interviewing neighbors, checking references. Through it all, Elias tried to keep life steady for Clara. Homework, library trips, mac and cheese on hard days. But Clara knew anyway. It's okay to be scared, she told him one night when she found him on the couch in the quiet hours. Grandma used to say being scared just means you care about something, and caring is good even when it hurts. Elias pulled her into his lap. When did you get so smart? I learned from you. You're scared, but you keep going anyway. That's what brave really means. The night before the hearing, neither of them could sleep. Clara came out around midnight. Uncle E? Yeah, Clara girl. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You saved me. You taught me that family is about choice, not just blood. And I choose you. I'll always choose you. Elias held her close. I choose you too, Clara. Always. The courtroom was smaller than he had imagined, more ordinary than imposing. Judge Rebecca Stone sat behind the bench, silver hair and reading glasses. Elias sat at one table with Isabel. At the other sat Gregory and Patricia Lang with their attorney. Between them, in a small chair near the judge, sat Clara in a navy dress. Her hair in two neat braids. Judge Stone looked up from her file. This is an unusual case. We have biological relatives willing and able to provide a home, and a non-biological foster parent petitioning for permanent guardianship. Ms. Cruz, you represent Mr. Harper. Isabel stood. Yes, Your Honor. We believe Clara has formed a profound attachment to Mr. Harper, that she is thriving in his care, and that removing her now would cause unnecessary trauma. The judge turned to the Lang's attorney. Mr. Harrison, your clients dispute this. They do, Your Honor. While they acknowledge Mr. Harper has provided adequate care, they believe Clara would benefit from being raised by her biological family. They can offer a two-parent household, financial stability, and connection to her family history. Hours of testimony followed. Isabel called her witnesses. Pastor Hayes described Elias's transformation and dedication. I've been a pastor for many years. I've seen a lot of families. What Elias and Clara have is real. That's a father and daughter, Your Honor. Mrs. Ellison brought school records showing Clara's improvement. Mr. Harper worked with her every evening. He attended conferences and volunteered for field trips. In a short time, Clara's grades improved significantly. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens because a child feels supported and loved. Mrs. Morales testified about the home environment and routines. I've raised children and helped raise grandchildren. I know what a loving home looks like. That child is loved. Then came the Langs case. Their attorney called a psychologist who spoke about the importance of biological family and two-parent homes. Isabel's cross-examination was sharp. Have you met Clara Bennett? No. Have you observed her with Mr. Harper? No. So you cannot tell this court, from direct observation, whether Clara is experiencing identity confusion. No. Gregory and Patricia testified about their home, their family, their desire to honor Gregory's sister by caring for her granddaughter. I can't fix what happened with my sister, Gregory said, but I can do right by her granddaughter. Patricia described their house, good schools, activities. Clara would have her own room, brothers, two parents, an extended family. Isabel's cross-examination was careful. Mrs. Lang, when did you first learn about Clara's existence? Several months ago. And in those months, how many times have you visited her? Several times. Did you know Clara's mother, your late sister-in-law? No. We had already stopped speaking to Evelyn by the time Clara was born. So Clara has no memories of you, no prior relationship. No, but that's just unfortunate circumstances. Mrs. Lang, what would you do if Clara does not want to come with you? Patricia hesitated. We believe children don't always know what's best for them. Sometimes adults must make hard decisions. So you would take her even if she doesn't want to go. We'd help her adjust. Children are resilient. With time and love, she would come to see its best. Finally, Judge Stone called Clara forward. Hello, Clara, the judge said gently. I'm Judge Stone. You can call me Judge Rebecca. Do you know why you're here? Yes, ma'am, because I have to choose where to live. I need to ask you some questions to understand what's best for you. Is that okay? Yes, ma'am. You know Mr. and Mrs. Lang want you to live with them. They've told me they can give you a nice home, your own room, brothers to play with. How does that make you feel? It sounds nice. They seem like nice people. They try real hard when they visit. But I already have a home with Uncle E. Tell me about your home with Mr. Harper. It's small, not fancy, but it's safe, and it's mine. What makes it feel safe? Uncle E is there. Every morning he makes breakfast, even though he's not a good cook. Every afternoon he picks me up from school. Every night he helps with homework. And when I have bad dreams, he comes and sits with me until I can breathe again. Clara, what do you remember about the day your grandmother died? Clara's hands clenched, but her voice stayed steady. I remember being scared. I remember trying to wake her, and she wouldn't wake up. I remember feeling like I was all alone, and nobody cared if I lived or died. What changed? Uncle E changed. He came to check on Grandma even though he didn't have to. He stayed with me, and when the social worker said I had to go to the group home, he said no. He said he'd take care of me. Why do you think he did that? I don't know. I asked him once, and he said because he knew what it felt like to be alone, and he didn't want me to feel that way. Clara, if I told you that living with the Langs might mean more things, more space, more toys, more opportunities, would that change your mind? Clara looked straight at the judge. My grandma used to say having a lot of stuff doesn't matter if you don't have love. She said people who have everything but aren't loved are the poorest people in the world. And people who don't have much but are loved are the richest. She paused. Uncle Gregory and Aunt Patricia can give me stuff. A big room. A swing set. Brothers. But Uncle E gives me love. He gives me every single day. Even when it's hard, even when he doesn't know what he's doing, he learns what he needs to, because I need him to. That makes me rich. That makes me belong. If you could choose where to live, what would you choose? Clara didn't hesitate. With Uncle E forever. Even though he can't give me everything the Langs can, he gives me everything that matters. Can you tell me what you mean? Last week, I got in trouble at school for pushing a girl who made fun of my old shoes. Mrs. Ellison called Uncle E, and he had to leave work. I thought he'd be mad, maybe decide I was too much trouble. But he wasn't. He talked to me about using words instead of hands. Then he took me to the shoe store and bought me new sneakers. Not because I deserved them, I'd just gotten in trouble, but because he said every kid deserves shoes that fit. She looked at Elias. That's what he gives me. He gives me knowing that even when I mess up, he's not going anywhere. That I'm not too much trouble. That I matter just because I exist, not because I'm perfect or related to him by blood. The Langs can give me stuff, but Uncle E gives me that. And that's everything. Judge Stone was quiet for a long moment. Thank you, Clara. You were very brave. After closing arguments, the judge called a short recess. Elias and Clara sat in the hallway, his arm around her shoulders. Did I do okay? She asked. You did perfect, Clara girl. You told the truth. 30 minutes later, they were called back. Judge Stone looked tired. She removed her glasses, rubbed her eyes, then replaced them. I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony. This is not an easy decision. The law generally favors placement with biological relatives because family connections matter. Mr. and Mrs. Lang seem like good people who could provide a stable, loving home. They have resources and stability. Mr. Harper cannot match. Elias felt his heart sink. However, the judge continued, and Elias's breath caught, the law also requires me to consider the child's best interest above all else, not what is theoretically best, but what is actually best for this specific child in this specific situation. She looked at Clara. Clara has made her wishes clear. More than that, the evidence shows she has bonded with Mr. Harper in a profound way. She is thriving in his care. Her grades have improved. Her social skills have developed. Her trauma symptoms have decreased. She feels safe, loved, and secure. Judge Stone turned to the Langs. I understand this is disappointing. I can see you care about Clara. But I must ask, what serves this child better? Being uprooted from a placement where she is clearly thriving, or remaining with the man who has been her primary caregiver, who provided stability and love during the most traumatic period of her young life. She paused. The research about biological families is not wrong. Those are real considerations, but they are generalized findings. They cannot tell me what is right for Clara, who lost her grandmother and found a father in a stranger who chose to love her. Judge Stone looked at Elias. Mr. Harper, I am granting your petition for permanent guardianship. Clara will remain in your care. The words did not register at first. Then Clara launched from her seat with a cry of joy, running to him, wrapping her arms around his neck. We get to stay together! We get to stay together! Elias, who rarely cried, felt tears streaming down his face as he held his daughter and whispered, Yeah, Clara girl, we get to stay together. Through his tears, he saw Patricia crying too. Gregory had his arm around her. They looked at Clara with expressions of loss, but also understanding. As they left, Gregory approached. Take good care of her. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one, Elias replied. Patricia touched Clara's shoulder. Clara, if you ever want to know about your grandmother, about your mother, we're here. We'd like to be part of your life, not as parents, but as family. Clara looked up at Elias for permission. That's up to you, Clara girl, he said. But I think it might be nice to know where you came from. Okay, Clara said softly. Maybe we could write letters and visit sometime. We'd like that very much, Patricia said. In the years that followed, the path was not always smooth, but the years were good in ways Elias had never imagined. Clara flourished. She excelled in school, joined the art club, discovered a gift for drawing. Her sketches lined their apartment walls, portraits of Mrs. Morales with her knowing smile, Pastor Hayes mid-sermon, Mrs. Ellison at her desk, and always drawings of Elias fixing a sink, reading on the couch, cooking mac and cheese. Why do you always draw me? He asked once. Because you're always there, she said. You're my constant. They exchanged letters with Gregory and Patricia, tentative at first, then regularly. The Langs sent photos and stories about Evelyn when she was young, pieces of history that helped Clara understand where she came from. They visited a couple of times. The visits were awkward, but not painful. Gregory showed her photos of Evelyn as a young woman. Patricia taught her to bake. "They're nice," Clara told Elias after one visit. "I'm glad I know them, but they're not you. They're not home." When Clara reached her teenage years, Elias saved for months to take her to the coast. Several days of collecting shells and watching sunsets. "You know what's weird?" Clara said one evening on the beach. "I used to think the world was small, just our neighborhood, our street. That was all there was, and now I know it's huge, but that doesn't make me feel lost, because no matter how big the world is, I know where home is." High school brought new challenges. Clara navigated social life with grace and made friends easily. But there were moments when the differences between her and Elias drew comments. "Someone at school asked if you adopted me from overseas," Clara told him one evening during her freshman year. "What did you say?" "I said you adopted me from the Dollar General parking lot." She smiled. They didn't know what to do with that. "Does it bother you when people ask?" "Sometimes. Not because I'm ashamed, but because people think family has to look a certain way." She was quiet a moment. "There's a girl who said something really mean. She said I was lucky you didn't kidnap me, or whatever it is scary black men do to little white girls." Elias's blood ran cold. "She said that?" "Yeah, and I punched her in the face." "Clara, I know violence isn't the answer, but I couldn't let her say that about you." Elias pulled her into a hug. "I appreciate you defending me, but you can't go around punching people. I got suspended for a few days." "I know. The school called. Are you mad?" "I'm sad you had to hear that. I'm angry people think that way. But I'm also proud of you for standing up for our family, even if you did it the wrong way. Next time, use words." "What would you have said?" "I would have said family isn't about matching skin colors. It's about showing up day after day, even when it's hard. It's about choosing to love someone and keeping that choice every single day." Clara smiled. "That's way better than punching." During her junior year, Clara announced she wanted to study social work. "I want to help kids like me, kids who lose their families and feel like nobody wants them. I want to make sure they find someone who will fight for them the way you fought for me." Elias's chest tightened with pride. "You're going to change lives, Clara girl." "I learned from the best." When acceptance letters arrived, they celebrated with a small party. Mrs. Morales made chocolate cake. Pastor Hayes brought sparkling cider. Mr. Kim and his wife came, along with Mrs. Ellison. "Speech!" someone called. Clara stood, embarrassed but pleased. "I just want to say thank you to everyone who helped me get here. To Mrs. Ellison for never giving up. To Mrs. Morales for teaching Uncle E how to do hair and for feeding us. To Pastor Hayes for showing us what community means. To Mr. Kim for being flexible. And most of all," she turned to Elias, eyes bright with tears, "most of all to Uncle E, who saw a scared little girl in a parking lot and decided she mattered. Who learned to be a dad without any instructions. Who showed me that family is choice. That love is action. That home is wherever someone fights for you to stay. I'm going to college because you made me believe I could. So thank you for everything." Elias could only pull her into a hug while everyone applauded. Clara chose a university a few hours away. The day Elias drove her to campus, they stood beside his aging car, neither wanting to leave. "I'm going to miss you," Clara said. "I'm going to miss you too. But you're going to do amazing things." "Uncle E?" "Yeah? Thank you for giving me a home when I had nowhere to go. For loving me when you didn't have to. For showing me what family really means. I always had to. From the moment I saw you in that parking lot, I had to. You were meant to be my daughter, Clara." They hugged, holding on a little longer than usual. "Call me when you get settled," Elias said. "Call me tonight. Let me know how everything is." "I will." Elias drove away, watching in the rearview mirror until she disappeared. The apartment felt too quiet that night, but he was also happy and proud. This was success, not keeping her close, but giving her wings. She called every week, came home for holidays, brought friends who treated her well and treated him with respect. When Clara graduated with honors in social work, Elias sat in the audience between Mrs. Morales and Pastor Hayes. He watched her walk across the stage and accept her diploma. She had insisted the program list, Clara Bennett, daughter of Elias Harper, not foster daughter, simply daughter. After graduation, Clara took a job at a family services nonprofit helping children navigate foster care. She rented an apartment, began her career, began making a difference. And through it all, she never forgot to call regularly. Elias was in his later years when Clara showed up at his apartment one Saturday evening unannounced. She had a determined expression he recognized. "Uncle E, I need to tell you something. I've been working on a project for the past couple of years. I didn't want to tell you until I knew if it would work out." "What kind of project?" Clara pulled out a thick folder. "Do you remember how you told me you were found at a bus station when you were a small child? That no one ever reported you missing?" Elias's stomach clenched. "Clara, what did you do?" "I'm a social worker. I have access to databases and old records. I started looking into your case." "Why?" "Because you deserve to know where you came from. You gave me a family when I had none. You encouraged me to build a relationship with the Langs so I'd know my roots. I wanted to do the same for you." Elias stood and paced. "I'm old, Clara. My parents, if they're even alive, would be elderly, and they didn't want me." "That's what you've always believed," Clara said gently. "But what if you're wrong?" She opened the folder and spread papers across the table. "I found the original police report from when you were a small child. A 3-year-old boy found crying at the Memphis Greyhound station. He kept repeating a name the police couldn't understand. Sometime later, a couple filed a missing person report. Their 3-year-old son, Elias, had wandered away at the bus station. They searched everywhere, filed reports, but by then you had already been placed in foster care under a different name. The reports were never cross-referenced." Elias's hands shook. He sat down hard. "I found their son, your brother, Nathaniel Harper. He's older now and lives in another city. A few years ago, he submitted DNA to ancestry databases, still hoping to find you. I contacted him, explained everything, and asked if he'd do a more detailed test." She pulled out a document with a laboratory letterhead. "Uncle E, it's a match. Nathaniel is your brother. And your parents, Samuel and Ruth Harper, they're still alive, elderly, living with Nathaniel, and they never stopped looking for you." The room spun. "They looked for me every year until they were too old to search. They hired investigators, put ads in newspapers, contacted every agency. But you'd been given a new name and different records. The system failed you. They didn't abandon me. No, they loved you. They've mourned you for decades. Do they want to meet me?" Clara's eyes filled with tears. "They've wanted nothing else for decades. Nathaniel has a photo of you as a toddler in their living room. A place set for you at every holiday dinner. A candle lit on your birthday every year." Elias could not speak. "When I talked to Nathaniel, he told me about your mother, how she never gave up hope. And he said she always told him that if they ever found you, she would tell you the story of how you got your name." "What story?" "Your mother was in labor for a long, difficult time. At one point, the doctors thought they might lose both of you. But your father prayed. He promised God that if you survived, he would name you Elias, salvation, because that's what you were. You saved them. You gave them hope." Clara squeezed his hand. "You were named for salvation, and you've been living up to that name ever since, saving people, giving them hope. You saved me, and now maybe you can save yourself by finding your way home." Elias looked at his daughter and saw the same love and determination that had driven him all those years ago. "When can I meet them?" he asked. Clara smiled through tears. Whenever you're ready. Nathaniel is waiting for my call. A few days later, Elias stood outside a modest house in another city. Clara stood beside him, her hand in his. You ready? She asked. Elias shook his head. No. How could anyone be ready for this? You don't have to be ready, Clara said. You just have to take the first step. I'll be right here. The door opened. A man stood there, tall like Elias, with the same features softened by age, white hair, a face lined with many years, but eyes the same deep brown as Elias's own. Elias, he whispered. My God, you look just like Dad. Nathaniel Harper stepped onto the porch. For a moment, the brothers simply stared. Then Nathaniel pulled Elias into a hug, and they stood there crying. I never stopped looking, Nathaniel said. Mama and Daddy never stopped. We always believed you were out there. I thought... Elias could not finish. Come inside. They're waiting. In the living room sat two elderly people. Samuel Harper, thin and frail, but with sharp eyes. Ruth Harper, smaller still. But when she saw Elias, her ancient eyes filled with tears and recognition. My baby, Ruth whispered. My baby boy. You came home. Elias crossed the room and knelt before them. Something in him recognized them, not consciously, but in some deep place that remembered being loved. I'm sorry it took so long. Don't you apologize, Samuel said, reaching out with shaking hands to touch Elias's face. This wasn't your fault. We lost you, Ruth said, both of them touching his face, his hair, his shoulders. At that bus station. One moment you were there, the next you were gone. We looked everywhere. The police said you had probably been taken. But I knew. A mother knows. I knew you were alive somewhere. We searched for years, Samuel added. But they changed your name and put you in foster care under different records. I didn't know you were looking. They told me no one came for me. I thought you didn't want me. Ruth made a sound like something breaking. Want you? You were our heart. When we lost you, we lost everything. We had Nathaniel and we loved him. But there was always a hole, always an empty place at the table. She pulled him closer. Every birthday we lit a candle. Every Christmas we set a place. Every night I prayed that wherever you were, someone was taking care of you. Someone was loving you. Someone was, Clara said softly from the doorway. Ruth looked past Elias to see Clara. Her eyes widened. This is Clara, Elias said. My daughter. Your granddaughter. Ruth repeated slowly. Your granddaughter? Not by birth. By choice. I found her when she was a little girl. She lost her grandmother the same day. The system wanted to put her in a group home, but I couldn't let that happen. So I took her in, raised her, and she became mine. He looked at Clara. She's the reason I'm here. She searched for you, found Nathaniel, brought us back together. Just like I fought for her, she fought for me. Ruth's expression transformed. She held out a hand to Clara. Come here, child. Clara crossed the room. Ruth pulled her close, studying her face. You brought my boy home. He brought me home first, Clara replied. When I had nowhere to go, he chose me. He taught me what family really means, that it's not just about blood, it's about showing up, about staying. Ruth smiled. Then your family too. Because family isn't just who you're born to, it's who chooses to love you. My son chose you, and you chose him. That makes you my granddaughter. She pulled Clara into an embrace. Nathaniel brought out photo albums, decades of family history, pictures of Elias as a baby, as a toddler. The last photo before the bus station. I remember this day, Nathaniel said, pointing to the final photo. We were going to visit family. You were so excited about riding the bus. I don't remember. I didn't expect you to. You were so young. But I remember holding your hand while Mama went to the bathroom. I remember Daddy asking me to watch you. I remember turning around, and you were gone. Nathaniel's voice cracked. I spent my whole childhood feeling guilty. It wasn't your fault. You were just a child yourself. I know that now. But for a long time, I carried that guilt. And I promised myself that if I ever found you, I'd spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Nathaniel smiled through tears. So you're stuck with me now, little brother. As afternoon faded to evening, stories were shared, and tears were shed, and decades of separation began to heal. Ruth brought out the family Bible, old and worn. Inside, written in careful script, was the family tree. And there, under Samuel and Ruth's names, Nathaniel Harper and Elias Harper. We never erased you, Ruth said softly. You were always part of this family. Elias traced his name with one finger. Proof that he had always belonged somewhere. There's more family, Nathaniel said, pulling out his phone. I have children, your nieces and nephews. They all know about you. They've been waiting to meet you. Over the next days, Elias and Clara stayed, soaking up family, collecting stories, building connections. The house filled with relatives, Nathaniel's children and their families, cousins, an aunt who remembered Elias as a baby. They were joined by their children, Elias's grandnieces and grandnephews. Suddenly, Elias was surrounded by family, by blood he shared, by people who looked like him. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and terrifying. Clara stayed close, his anchor, until one of the younger cousins pulled her aside. Are you really Uncle Elias's daughter? I really am, but you don't look like him. No, I don't. We don't share DNA, but we share everything else that matters. The little girl thought about this. Then you're really family too, because Uncle Elias loves you. You can tell. They gathered in the backyard for an impromptu reunion. Someone brought a grill. Someone else brought potato salad. Within an hour, there was a full spread. Ruth sat in a lawn chair, Samuel beside her, surrounded by the family they had built. Look at this, Ruth said. Look at what came from us. And it's complete now, Samuel replied. Our family is complete. Nathaniel stood to make a toast. Decades ago, we lost my brother. It broke our family and left a hole that never healed. But today, he's come home, not alone, but with his daughter. So I toast to Elias, who survived when he shouldn't have had to, who thrived despite a system that failed him, who became the man Mama and Daddy raised me to be. Welcome home, little brother. To Elias, everyone echoed. Elias stood. I don't have the words for what this means. I spent decades believing I came from nowhere, that I had no roots, no family. I built my life on that belief, kept people at a distance, convinced myself I was better off alone. He looked at Clara. Then I met a little girl in a parking lot, and she changed everything. She taught me that family isn't just about where you come from, it's about where you choose to belong. He turned to Ruth and Samuel. I don't remember you. I wish I did. But I see myself in this family. I see where I came from, and it helps me understand who I am. So thank you for never stopping the search. Thank you for keeping a place for me. He looked around at everyone. And thank you for welcoming me home, for welcoming Clara, for showing us that family can be both, the one you're born into and the one you choose. Ruth was crying, and Samuel was not far behind. Nathaniel stood and pulled Elias into another hug. You were never lost, brother. You were just taking the long way home. As the sun set, Elias sat on the porch with his parents. Clara was inside helping with dishes, surrounded by cousins who had claimed her. I need to tell you something, Elias said, about my life, the foster homes, the system. It wasn't good. There were times I thought it would have been better if I'd never been born. Times when I was so alone. Samuel made a sound of pain, but I survived. And eventually I found people who helped me. And then I found Clara. And she needed me in a way no one ever had. She gave my life purpose. She made me understand what family could be. He looked at his parents. I don't tell you this to hurt you. I tell you because I want you to know I'm okay now. I'm more than okay. I have a daughter who loves me, a job that gives me purpose, friends who've become family. I have a good life. And now I have you too, the family I was born into, and the family I chose." Ruth was crying. "We wanted to protect you and we failed. You didn't fail. The system failed. But you never failed. You kept looking, kept hoping, kept loving me even when I was gone. That's the truest kind of love there is." They sat watching the sunset, listening to family inside. "I forgave you a long time ago for something that wasn't your fault," Elias said. "Now I need you to forgive yourselves." "I don't know if I can," Ruth whispered. "Then let me help you the same way Clara helped me. That's what family does." Back home in their apartment weeks later, the same apartment where Elias had raised Clara, they settled back into routines, but everything felt richer, more complete. Nathaniel called every week. The family had set up a group chat where photos were shared daily. Relatives were planning visits. Months after the reunion, both families gathered. Samuel and Ruth came to visit with Nathaniel and his family. They filled the small apartment to bursting. Mrs. Morales hosted a welcome dinner in her larger apartment. Pastor Hayes came, along with Mr. Kim and members of the foster parent support group. Two families, two histories, two paths that had led to this moment. As they ate and talked and laughed, Elias moved through it all, connecting his two worlds, watching them merge into something new. "You look happy," Mrs. Morales observed. "I am. I didn't know I could be this happy." "You deserve it. After everything, you deserve every bit of this joy." Later, when everyone was seated, Pastor Hayes offered grace. "Lord, we thank you for this food and fellowship. We thank you for taking a tragedy, a little boy lost, and turning it into something beautiful. For giving Elias the strength to survive, the wisdom to choose love, and the patience to wait for the family he deserved. We thank you for Clara, who loved him enough to search. And we thank you for all of us gathered here, proof that family comes in many forms, all of them sacred. Amen." As they ate and stories flowed, Elias looked around and felt complete. He had started with nothing, no name, no history, no family, just a lost child, alone and afraid. But he had built something from that nothing. He had built relationships. He had built a family first with those who helped him, Mrs. Morales, Pastor Hayes, Mr. Kim, then with Clara, who had needed him, and now with the family he had been born into. He had it all. The family he had lost and the family he had found, the past he had never known and the future he had built. He was Elias Harper, lost and found, abandoned and cherished, alone and surrounded by love. And he was home. That night, after everyone left, Elias sat on his couch with Clara, city lights twinkling through the window. "Thank you," he said, "for finding them, for bringing me home. You brought me home first. I was just returning the favor. You gave me more than I gave you. That's not true. We gave each other exactly what we needed. You needed to know you came from somewhere. I needed to know someone would choose me. We both got what we needed." Elias pulled her close. "I love you, Clara girl. I love you too, Uncle E." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the lights. Elias thought about the journey, from a terrified small child lost in a bus station, through foster homes and loneliness, through the decision to help a little girl collecting cans, through the fight to keep her, through Clara's determination to find his family. It had been a long road, a hard road full of pain and loss, but it had been worth it. Every difficult step had led here, to this moment, to this family, to this home. He had spent his life believing he came from nowhere. But the truth was simpler and more beautiful. He came from love. He had always come from love, even when he could not see it. And he had built his life on that same foundation, choosing love when he did not have to, fighting for connection when isolation would have been easier. He had saved Clara, but she had saved him too, and together they had found home. Not in a place or a building or even in blood, but in each other, in the choice to stay, in the promise to keep choosing, every day, to be family. "What are you thinking about?" Clara asked. Elias smiled. "I'm thinking about a sandwich, and how sometimes the smallest acts of kindness change everything. The sandwich that started it all. Yeah, half a bologna sandwich. Not much, but it was enough. It was everything," Clara corrected. "Because it wasn't about the sandwich. It was about seeing someone who needed help and choosing to help them." "You're right." Elias looked at her. "You know what I've learned?" "What?" "That family isn't an accident of birth. It's not about DNA or matching skin colors. Family is a verb. It's something you do every day in 1,000 small ways. It's showing up. It's staying. It's choosing someone and keeping that choice even when it's hard. Like how you chose me. Like how we chose each other." They sat together in the quiet apartment, surrounded by photos of both families, shelves full of memories and love. Outside, the city lights twinkled. Inside, Elias Harper finally understood what it meant to be home. Not because of where he was, but because of who he was with. Not because he had found his roots, but because he had grown his own. Not because the past had been healed, but because the future was full of promise. He was lost, and he was found. He was alone, and he was surrounded by love. He was nobody's child, and he was everybody's family. And after a lifetime of searching without knowing he was searching, Elias Harper finally had what every human heart craves. He belonged. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.